After 9 on Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. My name is Johnny Hughes. Always a pleasure to serve you breakfast, hot, sizzling, and nutritious breakfast. The Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Anthony Kwesi Sappo, would today answer questions at the Office of the Special Prosecutor on the Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited SMS scandal. You know, he previously worked at the KPMG, called in to investigate the SML conversation. Earlier this week, Reverend Dr. Mishadai Uswamoa was the former Commissioner General of the GRA who ratified the SML contract signed without approval from the PPA to be dragged before the OSP, was detained along with some other officials, Isaac Krenzel and Mr. Soti. They are following closely this whole SML conversation. And I'm sure in the coming days we'll give you all the fine details. Happy 60th birthday to the Agricultural Development Bank. Pa Kwesi Shandorf speaks for the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. Is my guest in the studio. Pa, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Good morning.
And how are you doing?
It's a pleasure. I'm doing well.
Great. How's the minister doing at the ministry?
Yeah, the minister is fine. The ministry is also doing okay, but of course not so comfortable because of the many issues that have to be dealt with. Yep.
At the first glance, what would you say are the key things that the ministry is focused on?
Key things the ministry is focused on. I think now there is actually only one priority, and that is to restore our lost vegetative cover, the ones that we have lost because of galamsey and illegal mining. I think that's the priority now. Of course, there are other issues.
Sunrise on 3FM.
On the priority list of the minister, but if you aggregated all of them, galamsey is the one that the minister is most concerned about, just because of the extent of devastation. And that is why yesterday, for instance, we launched the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat. Let me not say we launched, it has actually been in operation, but yesterday it was formally outdoored as that body to coordinate all galamsey swoops and rates across the country. So galamsey is the priority for the
ministry. And who will be working there at this National Anti-Illegal Mining Secretariat?
So the Secretariat basically is an intelligence-led outfit, and so it has reps from the national security and the military and the Ghana Police Service and all our security agencies, basically.
Sunrise on 3FM.
So you're going to be, is this going to be another Operation Halt, Operation Galamstop, Operation Vanguard kind of look-alike operation, or what?
What the NIMOS, that's how we call it, what NIMOS will be doing is basically to be conducting swoops and raids into galamsey hotspots. And so maybe it ties into what we have known by way of the ones you've outlined. That's basically what NIMOS would be doing. The intriguing layer of distinction, if I have to put it that way, is that now it's more intelligence-led. It's not arbitrary. You cannot, the NIMOS will not just get up one day and say that, okay, we are going this direction or that direction. Everything is informed by data and facts. And so far, it has actually chalked some relevant, results already. And we are hoping to see more as we progress.
So for people like Kefo Jakpasu who are interested in ending galamsey, in the shortest possible time, because we've been at this, we've been throwing money at it, drones, military men, immigration officers, policemen. What would we say should be the trump card of the government now? We see the swoops. We see excavators being destroyed. We see chamfans being seized. And then what?
So the truth of the matter is that when it comes to the fight itself, if I have to be very honest, I don't think that anybody, no matter how well-intentioned they are, would be able to eradicate the menace now. Because if you examine and you diagnose the extent of devastation, you would logically come to the conclusion that it's not an issue that you can rectify now. For instance, as of now, we have about 16% of our land reserves that have been depleted. That is equal to some, the last time I checked, I'm not very sure, I think it's equivalent to some 5,000 or 5,500 hectares of land, which in practical terms is also equal to some 7,500 football pitches. So let's imagine that Accra Sports Stadium, for example. We have 7,500 of those being lost to illegal mining. Right. And that has occurred over an 8-year period. So if a new government is installed and that government is even very, very committed, like this particular administration, you may want to ask yourself and do the proportion. If 8 years, this is what was recorded over the period. When really would a new government be able to bring the issue to finality? It is not something that you can see and immediately determine. All the same, there are a lot of comprehensive measures and crucial policy interventions that are being rolled out. And so I think we should monitor and evaluate the progress by the minute, as and when. Because if you want to sit and do a one-stop assessment and say, okay, would be done by ABC, I think would be ambitious and a barefaced lie. I don't think anybody can be able to give that. So anybody who is listening and the entire Ghanaian populace, all those who are interested, including myself, wanting galamsey to end, the assurance is that, of course, it would come to a halt. But as to a determinable period, we will not be able to.
So we can't put a timeline to it.
Absolutely, it's very difficult because, for instance, if you want to do land reclamation, for example, now I'm saying that we have about 7,500 football pitches. That's the equivalence of the land degradation. If you want to reclaim one, the last time I did my check, it was somewhere around $30,000 or even more. That is if you wanted to embark on one exercise of a reclamation. So if we were even to multiply $30,000 by 7,500, first of all, you start thinking about the monetary implication, the cost variable. Then again, you look at how the duration when that can be done. So if you put all the factors together, you can see that there is really a lot of work to do, and that's why it's difficult for anybody to put specific timelines to it. All the same, the government is working, the sector minister is connected, and I think we can take it up from there.
It doesn't look like the sector minister wants to sleep, because he's at one interview or the other, is in parliament making statements, he's at one event or the other in furtherance of this whole thing. But can he do it alone?
No, certainly not. He cannot do it alone. There is no way. He has had cause to stress that repeatedly, that when it comes to the fight against illegal mining, the efforts have to be concerted. You would need the collaboration of all relevant state agencies, even including ordinary citizens, if I have to put it that way. Because, for example, sometimes the activities have the complicity of maybe people who are perceived to be very powerful. If nobody goes ahead to feed the relevant agencies with the information, how can you then go out to even clamp down on the activities in the very first place? So it requires the efforts of everybody. I think we must treat it like the way we all embraced COVID-19. You remember when COVID struck first? It didn't have a political outlook from the very beginning. Everybody was dealing with it as a national crisis until it assumed a political dimension. I think we should all, engage galamsey in that way, because the issues are very complex. Per the briefings that I've had within my short stay and all the information that I've been privy to, I think it's more complex than we even see on the outside. So really, it requires everybody, and that's why the minister keeps saying that it's not just about. It doesn't sit with the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources alone, though that may be the mother outfit in charge of administering the policies and all of that. It goes beyond the ministry. Everybody has to get on board. Everybody, actually.
The previous government brought an LI, a legislative instrument that allowed for people to go into forest reserves to go and mine. Your government, while in opposition, said that you will repeal that law when you get into power. In fact, at the last check, it was your government that was, or elements within your government that was asking for a state of emergency to be declared. Fast forward, and with the benefit of power, that law has not been repealed. State of emergency has not come. What is happening?
I want to start from the point of the state of emergency first. And I want to indicate strongly that it's not a proposition that is off the table, except that we have had cause to look at the impact of a state of emergency by way of its, practical contribution to fighting the menace that we have, the elephant in the room.
Right.
Johnny, if today government were to declare a state of emergency, as the NDC had always believed, and we did not have practical policy interventions to, as it were, support it or give effect to it,
right,
it may end up looking like much ado about nothing. And on a couple of other platforms, I've had cause to use this scenario to explain the situation that we have. That, for instance, let's imagine that we have started a new year. A believer goes to church, raises their hands and says that, okay, in this particular year, I'm going to dedicate the entirety of my life to serve the Lord. I'm going to abstain from everything that is sinful. Meanwhile, that person, for instance, if he were an armed robber, is still in the company of the bandits. He has not dislodged his guns and weapons and all of that. Yet the person has made an open commitment to the fact that he's going to now stop stealing, despite the fact that he's still in their company. You realize that open pronouncement would not make any sense, or we would not see the fruits of it, because the person has not actually detached himself from the very thing that enables that misconduct. So that's the same thing. The open proclamation, if we were to declare state of emergency now and you didn't have practical measures on the grounds to give effect to the state of emergency so declared, at the end of the day, to just be like, maybe it would be equal to maybe it would just have an optical appeal.
Are you going back on your words as a government?
No. I'm saying the point is that it's still a proposition on the table.
Right.
But if you declared it without accompanying policies to give effect to it, to give proper effect to it. For instance, we have heard repeatedly over the years that government was taking efforts to clamp down on the proliferation of illegal weapons and all of that. We've heard that over and over again, but still we do have a lot of them in the system. That is because despite those open and bold declarations, there are not enough policies to actually give effect to those declarations. So it's on the table, but before you get there, put in place mechanisms that would ensure that upon declaration you start seeing results. And I've had cause to say that with the interventions that the ministry is rolling in the not too distant future, maybe the state of emergency may even declare itself just because of the policies that we have been able to roll out. So that's just for the concerns around the declaration of the state of emergency. Now, LI 2462 indeed is a very thorny issue, but the truth of the matter is that
thorny? You promised that you're going to repeal it. How then does it become thorny?
It is thorny.
You have the numbers in Parliament.
Because first off, the truth of the matter is that LI 2462 does not sit with the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources.
Right.
I mean, it was enacted in November 2022. If you diagnose the law, you realize that, I mean, it is basically sits with the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology. It doesn't really sit with in fact, it doesn't even sit at all with the Lands Ministry, despite the fact that the operationalization of the law falls within the ambit of the ministry. So what we are doing now is and this is not evasiveness, we just want the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology to have the final commentary, final pronouncement on it. And so we'll wait for
your minister, the Minister for Environment, Science and Technology, Minister for National Interior, not National Security, Minister for Defense, all the people you're rallying around the table, sit at the cabinet table.
Absolutely.
Are you suggesting to me that the man who stood on a platform to make the pronouncement that when we come we will repeal LI 2462 now who chairs cabinet is not able to tell his people that, look, go to Parliament and tell them this is off the books? Thankfully, your minister is a member of Parliament for Elembele. The Minister for Environment is the member of Parliament for Tamale Central.
Absolutely.
So there's no confusion at all about that connection or liaison from the executive to Parliament. So what are you telling the people?
The point is that it is not off the table. It's honestly not off the table. Except that I'm saying we want to leave it to the ministry to do the communication around it, because all the sentiments have been heard. If you ask me, I mean, personally, of course, I can see the what appears to be the disparity or the disappointment. The fact that the NDC had said back then that it was going to repeal the law. As of now, Ghanaians are not seeing that at the moment. It gives cause for concern. But we cannot also throw our arms in despair now, simply because, I mean, the fight is a progressive one. I mean, it's not something, like I said, that can occur all of a sudden. So let's give time some time. I mean, what we have now is a proposed amendment. Okay, I was citing a scenario the other day that if somebody promises to give you, for instance, $10,000 within a period of within a period of 1 month, if somebody promises to give you $10,000 and after a week the person has given you $9,000 already, there's cause to believe and reason to believe that then the person may go ahead and fulfill the entirety of the 10. So if government actually did say that it was going to repeal, and now there has been a very significant effort by way of a proposed amendment, then we should logically be expectant that the ultimate would equally be done, I mean, in the not too distant future. Because even if you look at the amendments that has been done, it is a very effective amendment. Why do I say it is effective?
Tell me.
It is basically taking away the discretionary power that was earlier captured in the law. That gives room for the president to just go ahead and grant access to forest reserves. Likewise, the minister. That has been taken away. And I have had cause again to make the point that if, for instance, we lived in a building, we lived in a facility, and there is a certain parcel of land near the facility, and the landlord himself prohibits himself from accessing it, that is the owner of the facility, who else can go ahead and access that land? The president, as of now, per the amendment that has been proposed, does not have access to, does not have the legal clearance to give any access to any forest reserve. If the president doesn't have that, if the minister does not have that right, who else can? And so if you look at the amendment, and this is not to say that the amendment is effectively maybe a compensation for the promised repeal, but then if you study the amendment in purpose, in substance, we may as well say it is as good or as satisfactory as an actual repeal.
Really?
Because what does it do? It takes away the discretionary power that earlier existed.
But there are many other provisions in that legislative instrument that goes beyond the discretionary power of the president to grant anybody the leave and license to go into a forest reserve.
Exactly, but that really is the, if you ask me, is the thrust and crux of the law. I mean, the fact that there was discretionary power abundantly given to the president and the minister. So now that is off the books, we can expect more results as we progress. Again, I'm saying that my analogy once again, if someone promises to fulfill a certain financial obligation to you, and then in the course of time the person brings something closer, you can expect that the full promise will be redeemed. And so let's not throw our arms in despair. Let's see what happens as we progress.
We see the boys and the girls in the pits arrested every now and then. Chamfan destroyed, excavators destroyed, one or two things seized. You know, they are lined up. We show them to the police. Some are kept in remand, some are jailed, etc. When are we going to start jailing the big boys and the big girls who buy these excavators, who bankroll these illegal activities, who buy the pump action guns, who buy the cyanide, who buy the mercury, who buy the carbide and all of those? When are we going to start jailing them? This again is one of the valid concerns that we acknowledge. The fact that we have heard that the arrests that we make are basically low-hanging fruits, because those who go into the pits do not do so on their own accord. They are enabled and sponsored by higher authorities or powers. So if you do not deal with those powers, as it were, and you are only approaching those in the pits, you are really not doing anything. I would say on record that is also the focus of the sector minister. The sector minister has had cause to repeatedly explain that though he's happy with the arrest and all the swoops and raids, his primary focus is to get those behind them. But the complication that we would have to admit is that, like I've earlier indicated, the issue is a bit out of the ordinary, and so in seeking to apprehend the architects, the main masterminds behind the menace, you need a lot of tact and intelligence, so that
at the end of the day, you are able to get the necessary results that you are looking for. So let me just say, in respect of apprehending the real architects, it's just a matter of time. It is just a matter of time. Why do I say it's a matter of time? And this is not me wanting to hail or hype the minister. The minister, I mean, I work with the minister, of course. So
Dr. Emmanuel Kofi-Boah.
Absolutely. I've had meetings with him. I've seen his posture, his disposition. I've heard his commentary, his language on the issue and all of that. And there is a clear commitment for him to deal with it. And so I want to stick with that commitment. And I want to articulate the same commitment to our audience that the minister is committed. And for the fact that he's committed, we can only hold our hands in expectation that very soon the big boys, as it were, who are fronting, would also be on the front pages.
I, for example, said that, look, identify the excavator, look for the VPN or the chassis number, trace it back to the ports, check the manifest, check who imported what, who cleared what, go to DVLA, who registered what, and it will lead you straight to the doorstep of whoever registered it, who bought it, whether there's change of ownership. It should not be a difficult task.
Absolutely, it should not be difficult. But
so what is holding you back?
When people want to do wrong, they are very tactical and hideous about it. So, for example, let me put myself in the picture. If I were a kingpin who wanted to indulge in illegal mining, if I were the one shipping excavators, I would definitely look for other individuals to do the registration and all of that. So even if you did the tracing, okay, as much as it's commendable, it just may not necessarily lead you to who you are looking for.
So that we can say that you tried, it didn't work.
No, it is actually in place, and that brings to mind. Yesterday, during the launch of NIMOS, the minister remarked that as of now, about, is it 30,000 or 3,000? I'm not very sure. Some 3,000 excavators right now have been impounded at the ports, and investigations are ongoing on how they were even, about to enter the country in the very first place. So, to the concern of it is in place. It is being done. It's just a matter of time. But like I'm saying, all of this has to be intelligence-led. It is not so much of the combative approach, the guns, and no, because it's a very complex issue. So NIMOS is now there. NIMOS is principally intelligence-led. So again, let's give some time, especially because the sector minister is committed. So we can only hope. It's unfortunate I cannot give a specific timeline because of how complex it is. But if the minister is committed, let's not lose faith yet.
Now, we're cutting down our trees, and then you say you have a tree for life.
Reforestation.
Yeah. You're allowing people to cut down the trees, and then we're going to spend money to plant trees. Is Ajana 1, Ajana 2, is it not?
That concern I acknowledge is equally valid. But what are your options? I mean, people have already felled the trees. Okay, your option is to now roll out a measure that will prevent them. But beyond the prevention, you have to now restore the deed that has been done, the wrongful deed that has been done. So it's unfortunate, but we'll make progress. Indeed, we are making progress. That is why we are rolling out this particular intervention. We seek to plant some 30 million trees over the next 1 year and more. We want to plant some. In fact, that's already begun. Last week around this time, we had a diplomatic community. They were part of the conversation. They also went ahead to do the planting. And after a determinable period, I'm sure that we would have the lost vegetative cover return to its pristine.
Your minister's predecessor, Abu Jinapor, MP for Damongo, he embarked on a similar project drive to plant trees, at least for 4 years. Figures were quoted. How much we spent? 12 million in the first year. I remember then there was some 7 million, there was some 10 million. The trees were told how many trees had been planted. Have you taken time as a ministry to do an audit of how much was invested, how many trees were planted, where the trees are, how they are doing before embarking on this? Because every project needs to be evaluated first before you zoom into phase 2.
Absolutely. That's true. So that audit is ongoing. That's with all sincerity, the audit is ongoing because if you do not know the gains that you have chalked, you cannot make the necessary progress. So that audit is ongoing. In the not too distant future, we will be able to put out the report on what was done compared to what we are doing. But in order for us not to get into a place where citizens would even know what what the ministry was doing in the very first place. A lot of accountable channels or mechanisms have been incorporated into this particular one, so that at every given point we'll be able to know that XYZ trees have been planted at ABC cost, so that the updates are regular. Indeed, if the updates are regular, I mean, the citizens would naturally repose a lot of confidence in the entire process, and that would remove all the concerns of opacity and corruption and all of those. So expect that we'll be providing reasonable periodic updates on, first off, the trees that have been planted and all the monetary allocations in that respect as well. But the audit is ongoing. It's a very stringent process that has commenced under the authority of the minister, and I'm sure where there are any useful findings, it would be duly communicated to the public.
This Tree for Life reforestation initiative, what form is it going to take?
Okay, so first off, there is the first layer, which is currently ongoing. That is the amenity tree planting, and that is basically commemorative. Okay, so it started on the 5th of June, ending on the 30th of June. That means that in a matter of days, we'll be done with the first phase. Now, when we are done, we are now extending it to the hot spots, those places that have truly been devastated, because the concern again has been that if you live in Accra, where maybe galamsey has not really impacted the communities, and you planted trees, what are you really achieving? Why don't you take it to the areas that have been besieged and impacted? So after now, that is when we are going to do that. Then we'll get into the meat of the issue itself, the reclamation. And that, in my view, is the more important aspect of this whole initiative. The lands that have been devastated, the ones that we see with all the gullies and the ditches and all of that, government wants to effectively restore them to their pristine nature by way of covering up all of them, those ones that can be restored. I mean, we do an analysis and ensure that everything returns to, its original state. That one, of course, is very cost intensive. We have to admit that's really the crux of this whole Tree for Life reforestation. So that would start somewhere in by August. We should begin. Then by the ending of October, I think we'd have a full report on all the activities that all the actions that have gone into the reforestation initiative so far. So now it's just for the amenity tree planting. We'll now take it after 30th of June to go to the respective hotspots. Then reclamation would continue, monitoring and planting of the seedlings and all the other agricultural tendering would also be done alongside, and then by October we should be counting our gains.
What species of trees are you planting? Are you planting food?
Everything.
Or you are planting specific ones that will draw the chemicals from the earth, the chemicals, metals and poisons from the earth? What are you planting?
So it's a combination of everything, like I was about to say, everything really. So some of the trees that we are planting have ornamental values, but others also have restorative values. Those ones that have restorative values are the ones that would basically help the depleted reserves to return to their original, state of order. The ones for the ornamental purposes, clearly, I mean, by the operation of the word, we know what it is, just to beautify the environment and to help our fight against, climate change and all the other challenges that we face in that regard. So it's basically everything. I mean, here in Accra, for the amenity tree planting, which is basically ornamental, we have done mango, we have done coconut, we've done tangerine, everything else. Maybe one of these days you could actually pass by our office, would give you a lot to also plant as well. I mean, because for that, the amenity is for everybody. So yeah, everybody is invited for the amenity.
We're wrapping up this conversation. The younger generation are very important to me regarding knowing their place in the future, knowing their role in protecting the environment, knowing their role in trying to stop the menace of galamsey, so that we don't, if we're able to fight it now, we don't have it erupting again and rearing its ugly head in future. How are you roping the students and pupils in this initiative?
Okay, so that would bring me to the 5 5-tier approach that we are rolling out to deal with illegal mining. As part of those 5, there is a policy that has gotten to do with the deepening of education and awareness, and that is targeted at basically young people. It's just a matter of educating them on, first off, the need to preserve the environment, and then getting them on board in the process. But there's also another aspect. Just because you talk about young people, there is also another aspect that is worth mentioning. A lot of young people, as of now, because of the issues of unemployment and all of those other ills, are beginning to see mining as a very lucrative venture. And indeed, it may be characterized as lucrative, except that the approach a lot of people employ in getting into that venture is what is defective. So we are embarking on, we're going to embark in a lot of campaigns to sensitize young people on mining, but of course with a focus on doing it rightly, especially in the rural communities. So there's a new program. I don't think I have the permission to disclose the branding of the program now, but there's a new program that will replace NALEP, which has been there for, which was there in the erstwhile administration. It's going to replace NALEP, and that would be the vehicle for young people to also get on board. Indeed, government is not against mining, responsible mining. Of course, it's just the illegal small-scale mining that has always been the headache and the elephant in the room. So through some of this education and awareness avenues, young people would be brought on board. They would be given the required training and expertise, and then they can also eke a living, if I have to put it that way. And then so in that approach, you are dealing with two things. You are solving two problems. First off, you are educating them, but you're also empowering them. I mean, those who want to venture into the mining and the extractive sector.
Final question, maybe. The people of Ghana say we want to end galamsey. They are pointing accusing fingers at mining. Do you know if the Minerals Commission has issued any mining licenses since your government assumed power?
Okay, so talking about the issuance of licenses, again, in the 5-tier approach that we are rolling out, maybe let me just take you through all the 5 briefly. So the first has gotten to do with the reformation of the licensing regime, then again, the deployment of security personnel to the hotspots, then again, awareness creation and education, there is reclamation, and then there is the provision of alternative livelihoods for those in the rural communities. Let's now return to the first one, the reformation of the licensing regime. So in that course, we are bringing everything on the table. Let's review them. Those ones which have been defective, those ones that are not conforming to strict environmental protocols, we may, issue sanctions or do what may be appropriate in the circumstances. So based on that, I do not know of any new license that has been issued now. I honestly do not have that information because of the review process. Indeed, after the review, that is when there will be proper communication on those ones that have been cleared, and those ones which of course would have to be taken off the books and removed.
Your closing thoughts, Pakwesi?
So first off, I admit that galamsey is a very serious national crisis. Let me put it that way. It's very serious. It sits on top of all of our priorities because not only does it affect those in the rural enclaves, those of us in urbanized settlements also feel the brunt and the ravages of that particular menace. And so I am concerned, and I'm sure the rest of our audiences are all equally concerned. But the truth of the matter is that there is a sector minister, the Honorable Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa, who is very, very committed to dealing with the issue. Yes, he has the blessings of the president, who is equally committed. And so with that mix of resolve, I'm sure that we'll be seeing more results as we progress. Indeed, we are chalking some successes already, but we cannot afford to be complacent. So again, let's give some time and see what happens as we progress.
Pakwesi Shandov Ayerbi Aqua is my guest, has been my guest in studio. He speaks for the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, led by Dr. Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa. It's now time for birthdays, but first, enjoy this song.
A raffle.